Jennifer Mamola is the Advocacy and Policy Director with the John Muir Project. They urge Congress to work from the home out rather than the wild in order to truly prepare communities for wildfire while trying to unravel the fire-phobic rhetoric that plagues fire-adapted ecosystems such as our national forests. When not grappling with swamp creatures, she enjoys meandering through the wild, especially post-fire snag habitat as far away from a cell signal as possible. And folks might wonder, why is this presentation happening? Well, if you read Charwood, you will find out that the book is all about forests, it's about wildfire, and it's about a lot of the disinformation out there that fires are bad, we need to cut our forests.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I have the pleasure of working with Josh on the Eco Integrity Alliance and trying to band people together across the country because unfortunately, the fear of wildfire isn't just a West Coast problem. I've been working with a group in New Jersey. They're threatening to cut down 2.3 million pine trees in the name of wildfire mitigation because they don't want to end up like California. Because unfortunately, the mainstream notion is that our US forests are overstocked and therefore will inevitably lead to catastrophic wildfires that will leave moonscapes once the flames go out. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. Wildfire is a perfectly natural phenomenon that's been shaping our forests for millennia. And unfortunately, we're going the wrong direction. Congress a lot of the time, and I apologize, we'll be probably bashing Congress a lot in this conversation. The notion is for the last century, we've been working from the wild in rather than the home out. And right now they're trying to repackage the narrative. They're using a lot of nifty euphemisms, forest health, forest resilience. If only we managed our forests better, we wouldn't be in this predicament. But wildfires aren't a predicament. They actually are the first wildfires create the ecological critical first stage in multi-century life of a forest. And so I'm just going to show some pictures, kind of juxtaposition, because, I love my job, but it can get kind of depressing when you go into these post-fire habitats that they tend to salvage log. So for instance, in the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed last Congress, the Replant Act was put in there. And the Replant Act mandates that no more than 3 years post-fire that they need to salvage log, because most of the time the wood that has been burnt isn't merchantable, usually about 2, sometimes 3 years, depending. But a lot of the time, those trees may or may not be dead. A lot of them do what they call epicormic sprouting, and I'll have a couple pictures at the end. I know sequoias are in the news a lot right now, and so I'm here to try and dispel. I think the horror really is the salvage logging, as you can see in this photo from the rimfire. And then if you see in the background, actually, though, there's really nice post-fire regeneration. And so this is just right beyond that photo, the one on the left. And, these were taller than all of us that were on that field trip that day. And it was just really lovely. And it's really disturbing, though, because if you go back to this picture, in areas that are salvage logged, it's noiseless. You can't really hear much. There's really no natural bird song or anything. But then once you get further and further into the natural regeneration, you find cute little creatures, because this is their habitat. Snag trees, whether they're killed by beetle bark or bark beetles, rather, fire, they actually create habitat. And I don't think, most people understand that. So when we salvage log, we're removing the natural habitat for these creatures. And so it's been really, that's the bright side of the work, when we get to find these, oops, I missed one. The really great habitat. So my colleague Maya Koslov found this great gray owl nest. And so the previous picture, sorry, my oops. Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm not used to Go back. Oh, well, sorry. This is okay. So this was the initial shot, and then she zoomed in and got this really great picture of the nesting gray owls. And then we go out into post-fire habitat and we put out wildlife cameras. And so this is just a few of the shots that we got last year of some mountain lions and Pacific fishers, but we've gotten all kinds of creatures, big and small. There was a Sierra Pacific red fox, or a Sierra red fox, which is endangered. And I think we found that one last, and I don't have that picture with me though. So, when you look at these two pictures, the public is being sold the notion on the right, when really we should be treasuring and protecting the, the moonscape that is supposedly on the left, right? And so it's just really hard because again, I'm from California. I know a lot of you are out west, and wildfires are terrifying. This is not to diminish, especially the things that we've seen in the news, Canada, Maui. This is not to diminish how horrific it can be when these things happen. 90% are human caused. So we really need to take a look at ourselves, and we really need to put a stop to human-caused wildfires, but we also need to work from the home out through a home hardening and defensible space. Dr. Jack Cohen, who's retired Forest Service, has done the studies, and no more than 100 feet out from an occupied structure, vegetation manipulation is going to prevent that structure from burning down. You need metal roofs, ember-proof vents, and then it's really the first 5 feet around the structure is the most important, and then it can kind of stagger. And it's really unfortunate because some people out in the West that I talk to, their insurance companies won't insure them, even though they're in compliance. They're like, no, everything's got to be gone from 100 feet. That is not the case. There are plenty of, like the Latuna fire in Southern California, most of that community survived because it was defended and home hardened. And so we're, our representatives and senators, I was trying not to be rude, in Congress, unfortunately spend billions of our tax dollars doing things on the right, claiming that it will save towns and communities from the inevitable wildfire. And this is not the case. And this is Lassen National Park, right? A lot of people don't understand. Like they think, oh, well, we just cut the forest down. We need wood products. We need this. We need that. But it's just to extract and sell it to the lowest bidder because they get to keep the money at the end of the day. And there's really no money in the government for home hardening and defensible space. But then, when you go into the areas that haven't been salvage logged, again, you get this biodiverse, lush landscape. And it comes back, and depending on, and most news outlets, they don't go back post-fire, right? I mean, they might go back to the neighborhoods, but they don't go back to the areas that really benefit from wildfire. And there's this other notion that mixed severity wildfire is not good for forests, but most forest habitats need mixed and high severity fire in order to reproduce nicely. I was in Yosemite last year, and this was on the valley floor. I don't know how many of you have been to Yosemite, but I was aghast. I mean, we were driving down to the valley and there were logging trucks coming out, and I was like, what is going on? And so there was nothing on their website. And that's Half Dome in the background, and this is fire mitigation. I don't understand how something like this is going to protect my friends and family in Southern California from the next inevitable wildfire, because it's not. It's actually going to make it worse because forest management actually spews 10 times more carbon than bark beetle and wildfires combined. So not only are we destroying animal habitat, but we're also accelerating the climate crisis by using fossil fuels to take carbon out of the ground. Because the other notion that they like to tell you is like, oh, well, wildfires are carbon bombs, and if we don't manage them, then they'll just go up in smoke. I think it's Representative McClintock of California. He said if it's not going to it's either going to burn out or we're going to log it out. But that's not the case, because they did a study. Brian Baker and Chad Hansen did a study. I think it was last year, of the Dixie Fire. Less than 5%, I think the number is even lower. I think it's 2 or 3% of the biomass is actually consumed in a wildfire. It's the branches, the twigs, the duff, and the litter. And then all of that carbon is locked in. And the other notion that Congress will like to tell the public is, well, we have to go salvage log, because if we don't, that dead wood is going to then turn into a tinderbox and make the next fire even worse and more catastrophic. But again, this is animal habitat that people don't like to see. And then they go in and they salvage log. So this is Long Meadow Grove in Sequoia. And there's this notion right now that 20% of the giant sequoias have perished. And I'm sorry, I think I'm going over my 10 minutes. I thought I wouldn't, but here I am. And so I don't know if you, so it's a drone shot, but if you look, there's little piles. And so what they do is they cut down they take what they want and then they strip it all and they leave it there, and then they pile burn it and they call it prescribed fire. So that's another notion that the public is being sold. Well, we can just, curb the high intensity fires if we just go in and prescribe fire more. But that's not what they're doing. They're logging and then stripping it and then pile burning and selling it as prescribed fire. So, I don't know when the last forest you were in. This is also the Nelder Grove post-fire shot a colleague sent. But usually the more vegetation there is, the cooler it is. So post-fire, that looks pretty nice behind me. And then, the picture on the screen, it looks pretty dry and terrible. But have they given it the time to naturally come back? So, the picture on the left is epicormic sprouting from a giant sequoia, and that's just zoomed in really large. But then on the right side, you have the new tiny baby sequoias coming back. And, unfortunately, there's been an emergency declaration. And so they are severely logging a lot of these groves in the name of fire. And it's a theory at this point, but with the Replant Act and the farm bills coming up, the Republicans are really concerned about not salvage logging fast enough. And the Democrats are really concerned that we don't have enough seedlings in our nurseries to replant. But the thing is we don't need to replant post-fire if we just exercise a little bit of patience and we allow things to come back naturally. This was taken this June. This is one of the groves that the Forest Service and Park Service is saying they're going to salvage log and then replant. And I don't know about you, but just the juxtaposition, right? For me, that's just really beautiful. Like I really wish we could get more footage of post-fire regeneration. Because again, this is what you're being sold. They call this roadside logging. So, we're totally fine with the notion if you're on a trail and there's a hazard tree, go ahead and cut it down. But you need to leave it there because it recycles nutrients into the forest. It is an ecosystem. But back to my kind of harebrained theory, I'm really worried that they're going to be turning our national forests into plantations when you see things like this. Because again, this is not natural to cut down and then go replant. I don't like them. They're like, oh, it's going to type convert to manzanita. Those are the little bushes you see. But the thing is this takes time, right? Giant sequoias are how old? Thousands of years old. It took many, many moons for them to get to this point. And these are two of our colleagues, Maya and Tanya. They're both biologists. Those giant sequoias next to them are over 11 feet tall. No one is showing people this. And, yes, some have died. Our colleagues have said probably about 8%, not 20. And yes, that is sad, but this is nature. We all, dust to dust. Like we have to let the new generation be ushered in. And, that's just the way it is. So sorry, that was a little rambling. Hopefully I can share more information on offline. I can put my information in the chat, but the crux of the story is we really, we need to learn how to live with fire. And in order to do that, we have to work from the home out and not the wild in. And, you know, this isn't just for humans, right? This is for the creatures that have lived in these post-fire snag habitats for millennia, you know? And if we want to, you know, save ourselves, we really need to protect not just old growth. That's been a big thing in the news recently, but we really need to protect post-fire habitat, because they're some of the most ecologically biodiverse. And if you have a chance, if you live anywhere near a post-fire area, not even just the West Coast, I implore you, go visit and take pictures and share them, and just, you know, I bet you it's beautiful.